The night he saved her began with a choice so small it felt forgettable: stay quiet and walk past, or step into a moment that did not belong to him. He chose wrong by every sensible measure, and right by every human one. Years later, when the truth finally surfaced and the air between them cracked with everything unsaid, she would understand that love sometimes arrives disguised as inconvenience, wearing a tired smile and holding a child's small hand. But on that night, neither of them knew how close they were to the end of the lives they thought they were living. He was late again, the kind of late that came from choosing groceries over bus fare, from tying shoelaces twice because a little boy liked them neat, from promising bedtime stories and meaning it. The restaurant glowed too bright for him, glass, silver, laughter polished to a shine, and he hesitated at the door, checking his phone to be sure he hadn't misread the message. He wasn't supposed to be there for himself. He was there because the sitter canceled and his son's school fundraiser had ended early, and the only warm place nearby was this restaurant. He planned to order something small, sit in the corner, and leave without being noticed. She sat at the center table, posture straight, shoulders squared like armor she wore daily. The city knew her name, the company bore her signature, meetings bent around her schedule. Tonight, she wanted something simple: conversation without contracts, laughter without strategy. The man across from her leaned back too far, spoke too loud, and treated the waitstaff like furniture. At first, she smiled through it, a habit sharpened by boardrooms. Then he made a joke that wasn't a joke at all, something sharp and careless that landed where it hurt, and she felt the room tilt. The interruption came quietly. A chair scraping. A voice low and steady. "I'm sorry to intrude," he said, eyes kind but firm, his son peeking from behind his leg. "You dropped this." He held out her scarf, the one she didn't remember losing. The man scoffed, waved him away. The room watched, pretending not to. The single dad didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He spoke to the staff with respect, to the men with clarity, and to her with a glance that asked permission without pressure. The bad date's bluster deflated under the weight of decency, and the manager appeared, and suddenly the night rearranged itself. She laughed then, surprised, relieved, and invited the boy to sit. He refused politely, ordering cocoa for his son and tea for himself, insisting on paying for it. They talked in fragments at first, about schools, about work, about how the city looked different at night when you weren't rushing. When the bad date left, muttering about wasted time, the restaurant breathed again. She thanked the single dad, and he shrugged like he'd done nothing special. He left early, because bedtime mattered, and she watched him go with a feeling she didn't recognize yet. The next morning, she stood at the head of the conference room and felt the echo of his calm in her chest. She shook it off. Work was work. Feelings were for later. When the new project lead was announced, the door opened and he stepped in, tie a little crooked, eyes searching for a place to stand. Recognition struck them both at once, a quiet collision. He was the contractor brought in for efficiency, the kind who solved problems without noise. She was the boss. They nodded, professional, and pretended the night before had not rearranged anything. Days layered into weeks. He worked late because he always did, leaving early because he had to. She noticed the way he listened, the way he disagreed without disrespect, the way he made space for others to speak. He noticed how she defended her team, how she carried responsibility without complaint, how loneliness sometimes flickered when the room emptied. They shared coffee by accident, conversations by necessity, trust by repetition. The company thrived. The distance between them narrowed, the challenge came quietly and then all at once. A crisis hit, a missed deadline, a client threatening to walk, rumors sharpening like knives. Blame circled, hungry. He took responsibility where it wasn't his to take, not to be noble but to be honest. She stood with him publicly, a risk that raised eyebrows and stockholder questions. Privately, she asked why he did it. He spoke of his son, of teaching by example, of choosing right even when it costs. Something in her shifted, a door opening she hadn't planned to walk through. The rumor mill churned anyway. Whispers about favoritism, about motives. He felt the weight of it at home, the fear that stability could slip. She felt it in meetings, the pressure to be untouchable. One evening, the power went out across the city, and they found themselves in the stairwell, emergency lights casting everything in soft gray. He admitted he was considering leaving the project to protect his son from uncertainty. She admitted she was tired of pretending strength meant solitude. The truth hovered, fragile and brave. The resolution didn't arrive with fireworks. It arrived with choices made in daylight. She cleared his name with facts and transparency, accepting the scrutiny that followed. He stayed, but on his terms, drawing boundaries that honored his life. Weeks later, at a school event decorated with paper stars, she showed up, not as the boss, not as a public figure, but as a woman who wanted to be there. His son introduced her with a grin that knew more than it said. Love, when it finally spoke, sounded like relief. It sounded like laughter in a kitchen after bedtime. It sounded like respect kept intact. She told him the truth one evening as rain stitched the city together, that she had fallen for him long before she knew his name, that the night he stepped in had changed the direction of her heart. He told her he'd been careful because care was what he had learned to be, and that choosing her felt like choosing hope without abandoning responsibility. The message they carried forward was simple and hard one. Courage isn't loud, kindness isn't weak, and the bravest love is the one that shows up when it would be easier to walk past. The city kept spinning, the company kept growing, the boy kept asking for stories. And sometimes, when the night grew bright and the rooms too polished, they remembered the small choice that started everything, and chose it again.